What's up, guys? Tambo here with your weekly core report. This last week was our biggest ever for our members, including 2 more millionaires. Let's get to the winners. NFL was our biggest cash cow last week, highlighted by some great calls across all of our content, including JT Hayes being all over the 49ers game script on Sunday. Subscribe to our YouTube page now so you don't miss calls like this.
A little bit like the San Francisco defense, 3,200. I think Todd Bowles is a terrible head coach. And I think they'll come in with a terrible game plan in this game. And I think they could get wiped. I think it means a lot of touches for Christian McCaffrey. So if you simply pivot from Henry to McCaffrey, that's a huge ownership discount.
In addition, our cores and player pools were littered with the highest scoring players on the slate. Our members were in sync with our content, and the leaderboards proved it. Peter Pan 14 kicked things off, hitting for $117K in NFL Showdown. J-Dub 115 hit for $7K. Sammy Davis Jr. hit for $10K. OG member Brittany turned $75 into $11K. J. Ree won $30K. CSP 246 shipped $40K. Craven or Vad used Mangones and my weekly construction advice to hit for $40K. And K. Phallic hit for $46K with a Russell Wilson lineup. We'll get to our biggest NFL winners in just a second, but first we need to shout out some big wins in our other sports. Our content continued to crush in the soccer streets, with NYG fan hitting for $10K. K. Phallic's hot streak continued in the World Cup, shipping for $27K. In NBA, Long Dick Dong hit for $7K, while in MMA, Sevens Vox shipped a monster $51K. At Rumpier Sports, we take pride in featuring content contributors who actually make a living playing DFS. We put our money behind our picks on every slate, unlike many of our competitors. There's nothing better than when our members benefit from our content, and this week was the best week yet, producing 2 DraftKings Millie Maker winners to follow up last week's Millie Maker success. Shout out to Deepwater, who shipped $1 million in the 44-44. And huge shout out as well to Gordon Jonathan. He shipped the $20 Millionaire Maker with a monster score of 272 DK points, blowing away the competition. Congrats again to all our members. If you want to be featured in the core report, drop your winning lineup in the Members Never Win channel in our premium Discord. If you're not a member, join now. You won't find a better value with all sports included for one low price. And while you're watching, hit that like button now. Remember, if you're not winning with us, you're watching us win. Until next time, let's keep running pure.
Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to our best ball playoff preview. I'm joined by Mitch Snyder. My name's Simon Edwards, PumaCom. And Snyder, how are you doing this week? And we're a couple days away from Christmas. What do you got going on for your Christmas plans?
Not too much this year. I'm just going to head home and just kind of take it easy with some immediate family. There's kind of some bad weather here, so we'll see what goes on there. Looking forward to the holidays, though. Looking forward to a couple of nice NFL slates and that NBA slate, too, over these next couple of days. Excited to jump into this playoff best ball, too. Last year, I think we were pretty much right on the nose last year. We were on the Bengals heavy. Yeah. We were on the I can't remember were we on the Niners or something on the other side or something like that? We had pretty good teams.
Before the playoffs even started, we had the Bengals versus the Niners, and we almost got there with it. We got the Bengals in, but the Niners ended up getting eliminated in the NFC championship round. So we came very close to nailing the whole thing, and ended up getting a bunch of teams into those best ball finals in the Super Bowl round. So very good year last year for best ball NFL playoffs for us, and hopefully we can do the same thing this season. And our best ball calls in the beginning of the year for the season in general were awesome. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars. We were heavy on them. We were heavy on the Miami Dolphins. Snyder was heavy on the Raiders as far as their skill position players. So we got a lot of these calls right as far as our best ball preseason scenarios. And Snyder, how are you doing right now in your best ball teams?
I actually lost the last few of my teams last week. Injuries kind of derailed my season for the most
Yeah.
part this year, so it was kind of tough. Had some pretty decent teams heading in, but last week I fell short. So it's looking to turn it around this playoff season now.
Yeah, yes. I got killed with injuries too. It was a rough season for injuries. Fortunately, the Jaguars have kind of carried me these last couple weeks, being heavy on that Jaguars exposure, and Zay Jones being a fucking hero, man. We were drafting him in the 18th round and having enough Zay Jones on those surviving teams. I got probably about 3 going into the semi-final round, so we'll see how that plays out as far as the best ball mania. And then I got a bunch of puppies that are through to the semis too, about 6 of those. So we'll see how that plays out. It's funny, Snyder, we drafted probably 2 of those super flex teams, those big board super flex teams on the show that we did, and those were the only ones that I drafted, and I actually got one of those going through to the semi finals too. So we'll see how this next week goes. But right now, we're focused on playoff best ball, which is one of the more fun formats that you can play with this. The payouts are weekly throughout the playoffs too, so you're not having to wait the entire season to get a payout to play more because they'll have best ball playoffs going in each round of this. So it'll be a fun thing to do. And just a reminder, if you're watching before we get into this, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. And we're running a promo right now on Run Pure Sports. It's ho 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 25. And that's going to get you 25% off your first payment on a monthly subscription if you sign up to our Run Pure Sports premium content. And Snyder, why don't you get into a little bit about what we're offering here on our premium content?
Yeah, we've got access to all sports for one price. We got NBA in full swing right now. We've got NFL. The college football bowl season's going on right now. That's all included as well. We've got MMA. We've got pretty much everything you can talk about. They just got through soccer. I mean, soccer was a huge World Cup for us. We had many subscribers and guys in our own Discord and coordinators as well, just shipping day after day in that World Cup. And that, if a new sport like that starts up, I mean, it's all under that same umbrella. You get all sports, one price. You get BigT's player pools. You get the core plays. You get the playbooks. You get pretty much everything we offer all under that one umbrella. And we've got PGAs coming up here in a couple weeks. Just got off a call last night. We had a meeting kind of planning out what our whole attack plan is going to be. I think it's going to be awesome this year. We're going to incorporate some new stuff for that. So looking forward to that as well, as that soonly is going to be here as January gets here.
Yeah, and Snyder is one of the top guys when it comes to premium golf content. So if you're into PGA, you'll definitely want to check that out. Are you guys doing anything with the what is it, the Live Tour?
Yep. When they have tournaments for that, we're definitely going to have a different playbook, some new core plays for that. We're going to have for like some big events without PGA events. We'll probably have some shows and stuff too. But yeah, we've got a lot kind of planned out for the whole golf product as a whole. But we're kind of teasing it right now. But soon we will unveil everything here. So I'm really excited about it.
Good stuff. Yeah, and as far as NFL this week, we got kind of a weird week with NFL. We got most of the games playing on Saturday. So we're going to be doing our morning wood show and our off the chalk show on Saturday morning. And then on Sunday, we won't have any shows running on Sunday, but we will be recording. We have recorded a couple shows earlier in the week focused on that Sunday slate. It's a 3-gamer. And Snyder and I are actually going to record a Showdown show for that. And that's all going to be free content. So go over to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And like we said before, hit the like, helps us out. And we will get on with this now. We're looking at the playoff picture. So one of the things that Snyder and I have been messing around with is this ESPN playoff machine app that they got going right now. And basically, this is what you want to do before you dive into any type of playoff best ball. You want to kind of have an idea of what those round one matchups are going to look like, and even who's going into the playoffs. Because a lot of people don't bother doing this. They just kind of go with the go-tos, the Buffaloes, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Chiefs and whatnot, and just kind of skip over any potential value in later rounds. And you can really just kind of map out what you think is going to make it into the playoffs and how those rounds are going to look, and see if you can find any value. And I think that we can find some good value to help us kind of get those first round buys into, like round two of these best ball playoffs. Because basically the first round buys, those are a lot of the best players like in the pool. But if you draft too many first round bye guys into your playoff lineups, then there's a good chance you'll get eliminated in round one of these playoffs. So you got to kind of try to figure out a way to backdoor those guys into the second round of these playoffs. And you do that by trying to find value in the later rounds. So you can draft maybe if you think that the Chiefs are going to be the number one seed and get the first round bye, but you want to draft a bunch of Chiefs, you have to figure out a way to make up for losing those early round picks by drafting value in the later rounds to try to stand a chance of getting those teams through to the next round. So we'll kind of go over how we kind of projected these playoffs right now. But right now, we basically have the Buffalo Bills as the one seed. So they would be the team that advances to, like the first round bye. They'd get a first round bye. For the wild card games, we have projected Miami versus Kansas City. We have Baltimore versus Cincinnati. We have Los Angeles Chargers versus Jacksonville. We have Philadelphia getting the first round bye in the NFC. We have Detroit versus San Francisco. We have New York versus Minnesota. And we have Dallas versus Tampa Bay. And so there are a few decision points that you have to make when you're running this app. You basically have to go through each individual week, as you can see up here, to kind of project who you think is going to win all these games. So we got week 16, Jacksonville just beat the Jets. What a fucking awful performance by Zach Wilson, man. And I got to tell you, a lot of people were projecting that there would be no, offense, whatsoever in these games, and just like going run heavy and everything like that, just because it was like a bad weather game. But once again, these bad weather games are unpredictable, and ends up that Evan Ingram, like a pass catcher, was in the captain. I was actually heavy on Evan Ingram, but I kind of put him in there with not enough Trevor Lawrence. I was suckered into, into the Zach Wilson side a little bit too much. It was, I kind of overthought it a little bit and ended up playing probably a little too much of the New York Jets passing game as opposed to going heavier on the Jags. But Snyder, how do you end up last night? Were you more heavy focused on the Jaguars, or did you try to sneak in that Jets passing game too?
Yeah, I was pretty much high on both passing games. I did have around 15% Evan Ingram in the captain, but I didn't have him matched up correctly. Like I had too much Zach Wilson and his bum ass. I had too much Christian Kirk, actually, who kind of dudded as well. Yeah, I faded Zonovan Knight, which was good, and I faded some other good players, but I was underweight on the kickers. I down projected the kickers, so I only got like 10 to 15% of each kicker, which hurt me in the end, but it was an all right week. I think I ended up like breaking even, which is fine.
Yeah. Same here. So not horrible, but at least got Evan Ingram right in the captain spot. But regardless, as far as these decision points that we have in week 16 here, Titans obviously can handle the Texans, but you never know in these division games. And the Texans have kind of been spoilers for these seemingly locks in the past, with last year beating the Colts and ruining the Colts playoff hopes. So there's definitely could see a scenario where the Houston pulls off that win, but that's pretty much they also got, the Titans also have Malik Willis now. I think he's out for the season, right, Snyder?
I'm
Or
not for
he's at
sure.
least out this week.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to
So
play for this week for sure.
So there is a path to Houston winning this game, but like for the sake of this experiment, we're going to put Tennessee as the winner of this game. They still got Derrick Henry, and Henry's expected to run a ton this week. But you can see Houston stacking the box this week because they obviously Malik Willis isn't a threat to beat them in their
Not
minds.
sure it's going to matter though. Looking at the last 4 times Henry's played the Texans, I think he's averaging like 230 yards rushing.
Yeah, it's something ridiculous. So we'll see what happens there. But nothing really stands out here. Obviously, we got Jalen Hurts kind of out for this week, and Dallas. This game could be closer than we're kind of projecting. But for the sake of the argument, I have Dallas winning this one. And other than that, there's nothing really that stands out as a potential spoiler in this one. Oh, the other key decision point in this one that you want to make is between Cincinnati and Buffalo. I have Cincinnati. That's Cincinnati and the Patriots. Patriots playing at home against Cincinnati. They might show up, but I think Cincinnati has been playing really well lately, so they should handle it with no issues. But just keep that in mind when you're making these decisions in the Week 16 matchups here. So let's go to Week 17. I think Week 17 had a few more that are, going to be important for your final decisions here. Dallas versus the Titans. I think the Cowboys can win that pretty handily. Eagles should clinch that one spot in their division in Week 17 with a win over the Saints, who just put Jarvis Landry on the IR, and I know for Week 16 that Olave will be out. So who knows if he'll be playing in Week 17? I would imagine that he is, but keep an eye on news there. Other key decision point. The main decision points in this one is the Jets versus Seattle, because if you have Seattle beating the Jets, then the Seattle will end up as that 7th seed, depending on your other projections, over Detroit. If you have the Jets winning, then you got Detroit winning that. I have the Jets over Seattle just based on potential of Mike White being back next week. And the Jets, they're fighting for their playoff lives. I think they have a slim chance of still making it in. But Seattle hasn't been playing as well these past few weeks, and their defense is really good. And I think they're going to be, motivated. Well, they're obviously motivated, but I think they're just based on this horrible loss. They're going to be embarrassed, and they're going to come out and looking to make a statement next week, the defense. So if they have Mike White back, they'll at least be able to put up some offense. And then Seattle's run defense has been horrible lately. And their run game, Walker has been pretty inefficient, and the Jets' run D has been incredible these entire season, basically, and their pass defense is good too. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Seattle. I basically have the Jets over Seattle. Snyder, what are your thoughts on that too? Are you with me on the Jets?
Yeah, I'm right there with you too. I think, especially if Mike White plays in that game, I think that team is obviously has the defense to lock down those receivers from the Seahawks. I think Sauce Gardner will put DK Metcalf on a stranglehold there, and then I like the Jets offense as a whole with Mike White better than what we saw last night for sure. So I'm right there with you on that. And Seattle's kind of been regressing over these last 4 or 5 weeks, so I could kind of see them continue on their little downward spiral there.
Yeah, I agree. And so the other decision points in this week would be Buffalo versus Cincinnati. So this is going to be a huge one. If you believe that Cincinnati beats Buffalo, then this changes everything. Like that puts Kansas City in the number 1 seed. That would make Miami versus Cincinnati that first game. Baltimore would now be facing Buffalo. unfortunately for Snyder.
Yeah,
hoping to get
they're drawn thin.
hoping to get Baltimore as far as possible. Like they have a bad matchup either way, but at least versus the Bengals, if they play the Bengals, they have a division rival, so those games tend to be a little bit tighter. But we'll see how that plays out. But right, for the argument of what we're doing here, we're going to have Buffalo beating Cincinnati at Cincinnati in that week. I think that was it for main decision points for week 17. If we move on to week 18, we have another couple big decision points here. I don't know what Dallas's situation is going to be this week. I think that they will have basically their playoff situation clinched. If they lose to Washington, that puts Washington in that 7th seed. It doesn't really affect Dallas's seeding, though, if things play out the way that we're projecting. So I could see a scenario where Dallas rests their starters. But keep in mind, when Dallas had it clinched last year in week 18, they played Philadelphia, and they started all their starters, even though Philadelphia was starting their backups. So I could see a scenario where Dallas is doing the same thing this year, and they're still playing to win out the season and make statements for whatever reason in week 18. So in that scenario, I picture Dallas beating Washington, but again, it's another division game. You never know what's going to happen in those games. Washington beat the Eagles earlier in the season. So anything could happen this week, but for the sake of what we're doing, we got Dallas winning. If you wanted to put Washington in there, we know Meg will be putting Washington in there in this scenario. So she will have Washington in that 7th seed probably. But for this sake, we're going to have Dallas winning. Detroit makes it to that 7th seed. What were you going to say, Snyder?
Just one thing to note on that. It looks like Chase Young's going to be back for Washington on the defensive side of the ball.
True.
He's a difference maker, and I think he could help maybe gain them some points or help them gain a win or two here down the stretch with his presence. Elite pass rusher. I think he could definitely cause some problems for Dak and the Cowboys in that game at home.
Yeah, Dak is definitely overrated, and he has not been playing well this season. And it's basically been the defense and the run game for Dallas that's kind of carried them this season. I could see Dallas. Everyone's high on Dallas, and there's reason for that. Like they've looked like a good team, but let's not forget, like the NFC East has had a super easy schedule this year. The Eagles look dominant. The Cowboys look dominant. And look, we're looking at potentially the Giants and Washington also making it into the playoffs. That entire division could make it in the playoffs just because their schedules were so easy this year. And don't overlook that when you're projecting who's going to be advancing the furthest in these playoffs. The NFC in itself is a shit show. Like there's 3 good teams that I believe in the NFC. I think the Eagles are good. I think San Francisco is good, and maybe Minnesota. Minnesota's been pulling off some decent wins. I think they're kind of overrated too. But for the sake of naming 3 teams, basically, I think Minnesota would be that 3rd team that I see as kind of a threat, like just based on their skill position players and.
Honestly, I only think there's like one good team in the NFC. I think that the Eagles have some holes. I definitely think the Vikings are overrated for sure. The Dallas, they have troubles on offense. Their secondary is injury riddled now too. They do have that elite pass rush, but I think the 49ers are the best bet to make the Super Bowl there from that side. I think they're the only for real team. I'm not worried about the quarterback there. Brock Purdy's looked almost just as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. It looks like Jimmy Garoppolo may return for the playoffs, but he's kind of a liability there too. I think they'd almost do better with just putting Purdy in there and have him in like a game manager role with you got Kittle, you got Ayuk, you got CMC. I think Debo should be back, I think, for the playoffs. I'm not for sure. But yeah, they have a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball as well.
Purdy's been pretty rock solid.
Better.
Yeah, he plays with confidence, which I like. It could end up biting them in the ass once they have more tape on him, though. Like if he's trying to take deep shots being overconfident and stuff. It could end up biting them in the ass. But for now, he's looked good. We've seen him beat the Bucks, and we've seen him beat who they beat last week. Was it the
Seattle? They
Seattle?
handled them pretty handily. Yeah, I can't remember. BigT shipped the showdown with them, though. I know.
Yeah. We all had Kittle in the captain in that one. Seattle's been pretty bad against tight ends this season, so they're almost on the Cardinals level bad against tight ends. So, okay, so we're looking at these teams as being the ones who advance to the playoffs. So we're going to take a look now at this playoff picture that we have kind of drawn up. So Kansas City versus Miami. I think we can probably advance Kansas City to that second round. What do you think there, Snyder?
Yeah, I think that's fully. They're going to be favorites in that game for sure. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if somehow Kansas City has been susceptible sometimes this year. I could see them. I don't think it's a really good chance of it happening, but it definitely wouldn't surprise me if, say, Tyreek got loose, Jalen Waddle, Tua right there. They've got an all right defense, but it's I think Xavier Howard's about the only best player on their team. But that'll be a good game at least, I think, though, from that standpoint. But I think the Chiefs do squeak it out there.
Yeah, I think the Kansas City has looked bad at times this season. I think Mahomes is basically pulling everything out himself for the team. Him and some help with Kelsey, obviously. Their defense isn't helping them. Their run game has been up and down. We got McKinnon, who's kind of showing up at the end of the season like he did last year, which is great. I have a bunch of him in the best ball teams that I drafted earlier in the season that have survived. Miami, I could definitely see them pulling the upset. If there's going to be a team that is able to knock Kansas City out in the first round, one of those later seed teams, I think it's Miami. So that's a tough draw for Kansas City in general. But, if Kansas City, they're going to be playing in Kansas City. If it ends up being, crappy weather again, then I think that Kansas City should probably handle it. But you could definitely make a case for Miami there. Cincinnati versus Baltimore. I've got Cincinnati going pretty far in these playoffs, so I would project them to win. Snyder, do you have a take on that or a preference?
Yeah, it just depends on where that game is. If it's somehow the Ravens get the home field advantage for the first game, I could see it going that way. I mean, their defense has been playing really good over the last few weeks. It's just the quarterback position has been holding them back here, and it looks like Lamar should be healthy. I mean, I think the defense is good enough if they can get enough rest and the offense can move the ball. But the Cincinnati, that passing attack is elite, and that'll be a heck of a matchup there watching Humphrey and Peters try and defend Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and all that. But I think the Ravens definitely have the better defense, but Cincinnati has the better offense. So probably lean whichever team has home field advantage, I think.
Yeah, I would project Cincinnati to have home field advantage in that one. I think that Baltimore has been up and down all season. They haven't been scoring a ton of points. Cincinnati also has a good defense. Yeah, Cincinnati's had a good defense too. And I think just Cincinnati's kind of the total package. They got a good defense. They got a good run game when it's working, and they have a good passing game. So I think it'll be overall,
a slugfest either way, though. It'll be like a 3-point game. I mean, the Ravens, doesn't matter how shitty they've played like over the last 10 years. Once it gets into the playoffs, they play different, though. They know how to play playoff football. So, but I definitely think Cincinnati has the advantage.
Yep, for sure. So if we got Cincinnati advancing there, keep that in mind, though, what Snyder just said about it being a slug. These are division opponents, facing off against each other. Last year, Cincinnati had 2 really good games against Baltimore. They scored a ton of points, but this could also go in the direction where it's like a 16-13 game. You know what I mean? Right. Like this could easily be a low-scoring game. So keep that in mind when you're considering drafting Cincinnati players in these rounds. You're going to probably need some high upside guys in the later rounds. Like if you want to try to get them to advance to a next round beyond the wild card round here. So Jacksonville versus the Chargers. Jacksonville has been playing lights out lately. I have a bet though on the Chargers to win the AFC. So I kind of lean on the Chargers. I made that bet in the beginning of the season. Chargers have been dealing with injuries all season long, and it's been killing the team. And they finally were healthy last week, and they looked great. Like the passing game was firing, the Eckler in the running game was firing, and they just looked great. I think Jacksonville is the feel-good team right now. And if they're the 4 seed and Chargers are the 5 seed, then obviously Jacksonville is going to have home field advantage. I think the Chargers could pull it off. I think that Jacksonville kind of have not been here before versus the Chargers, who have had this taken away, like just ripped from defeat, victory ripped from defeat, or whatever the freaking saying goes. Like the last few years, they always screw it up at the end of the season. They end up not getting to the playoffs. If they finally get a shot to make it in the playoffs, I could just see them playing at an elevated rate and just being, super motivated and super determined. And I see the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've kind of been on a run here at the end of the season. They're a dangerous team to face in the first round of the playoffs, but I could see the Chargers pulling this one off. What do you think there, Snyder?
Yeah, this should be a really good game. I think the talent on the team goes to the Chargers, obviously, but I think the coaching advantage goes to the Jaguars there. I think Staley, or whatever his name is, from the Chargers, I think he's a complete donkey when it comes to head coaching, but the Chargers definitely have the talent there with Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, but Jacksonville's playing great right now. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is playing with a ton of confidence. Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, they've got some guys there, Travis Etienne. I definitely think this is going to be another close game, and I think I would slightly lean to the home team here in the Jaguars.
All right, had a temporary power outage there, but I think we wrapped up the Jacksonville versus Chargers game. I like the Chargers. Snyder likes Jacksonville. For the sake of this, let's put Jacksonville through. Although
you can put the Chargers through. I think they have the most talent. They should win that game.
Yeah, I think for the sake of best ball drafts, Chargers would be the more interesting one to go through, like as far as game stacks and stuff like that. I think they would have the potential to kind of advance like the furthest.
I mean, that's a way to kind of get unique though on these best ball drafts, to kind of avoid some duplications though, for going off the board a little bit here, maybe drafting some Jaguars or drafting some Dolphins and such like that, which is kind of a way to kind of help differentiate yourself as you get to the end of these playoff best ball, the championship or the Super Bowl. There's a lot of overlap in the conference championship games and then the Super Bowl even.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that would put our next round at Buffalo versus the Chargers, and then Kansas City versus the Bengals. And we'll start with the Buffalo versus the Chargers. I mean, I think Buffalo on paper wins this game pretty handily. What do you think there, Snyder? I just think that, Buffalo's shown some weaknesses in their defense recently. We're talking about a playoff game in Buffalo. We don't know what the weather's going to do to us, and the Chargers coming from obviously California climate. Buffalo would be an advantage there, but there's so many offensive weapons on those Chargers, and Buffalo, is really lately it's just been Allen and Diggs trying to pull out these wins, and their secondary players haven't really done too much, but obviously Buffalo would be the favorite going into that game. I think the Chargers could potentially pull off the upset, but Snyder, which way are you leaning on that game?
I'm going to be heavy on Buffalo there. I have no trust or no want to even back the Chargers coaching staff in a matchup like that. I think Buffalo is clear heads and toes above the rest of the teams in the AFC too. I'm going to be heavy on the Bills in the AFC side this year. Yeah.
I think for upset purposes, I would go Chargers just based on my bet that I think they win the entire conference. So I'm kind of staying consistent with that, but that's a total long shot. Buffalo obviously would be the favorite in this game and most likely to move on to that next round. Kansas City versus Cincinnati. Burrow has owned the Chiefs in these past couple years. He's beaten them every time, and they faced each other 3 times so far in the span of about a year. That's obviously can't maintain itself, but at the same time, Kansas City has the worst defense and they have less offensive weapons than the Cincinnati Bengals, but they would be playing in Kansas City most likely. And I think that the Chiefs would be able to pull it off this time around, but I kind of lean Cincinnati in this one just based on most recent matchups that they've had and based on, I think Cincinnati is the more solid team all around. Like, which way would you lean on this one, Snyder?
Yeah, I'm probably going to roll with the Bengals here. I'm going to keep rolling with Joey B until he proves me wrong against this Chiefs team. He's just absolutely owned them the last 2, 3, 4 times they've played. So I definitely think the Bengals have the better talent, more so the whole roster. I think Cincinnati is the more talented team there. Joey Burrow he's playing at an elite level when he gets in these huge big time games. Jamar Chase is a monster. I think he's debatably 1, 2, 3 top receiver. I mean, you got Justin Jefferson and some other guys up there too, but Chase is right there up there with him, and Higgins is kind of the outlier there too. I think he's better than people give him credit for. So I'm going to be on the Bengals side there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Buffalo versus Cincinnati. Again, I'm leaning Cincinnati on this one. Josh Allen, as Uncle Dunkle says, likes to piss down his leg during these big games and stuff like that. So their weapons just have not been clicking like they did last year. But again, like last year, it seemed like their weapons all started clicking going into the playoffs. So maybe Buffalo gets it together, but they have not seemed like the dominant team that they were in the beginning of the season or even at the end of last season. It'd be basically Diggs versus Chase and Higgins and to an extent Boyd. The better run game is probably on the Bengals side too, with Mixon, and Pirine lately has been a stud versus Cook and Singletary. I do like Cook a lot, but I don't think that he's a better running back, and the run game in general of Buffalo would be better than Cincinnati. And the defense of Cincinnati has been playing a lot better than Buffalo's defense recently, but Buffalo has the weapons in their defense to be dominant throughout the playoffs. It's just a matter of things starting to click. Tre'Davious White came back a few weeks ago off an ACL tear, so he's slowly been getting adjusted back into playing form. So by the time they get to this far into the playoffs, we could see him making an impact more so than he has been recently. They lost Von Miller, which was a huge loss for Buffalo's pass rush. I don't know, man. I just think that Cincinnati could handle Buffalo in this one, and I would put Cincinnati going through to the Super Bowl. What would you think on this one, Snyder?
I can definitely see that. I'm just going to keep rolling with Buffalo, though, here, personally. Here, I think it's the revenge tour here. I mean, Buffalo should have beaten Kansas City last year in the playoffs. That was a really close game. I think I can't remember what all happened there. I know there's a lot of back and forth there in like the last 2 minutes of that game. That was a wild game. I remember watching that game with AP, actually. So, I think the Bills are coming for a little revenge this season. I'm going to ride them to the Super Bowl. Boom or bust. I know the Von Miller entry is rather large for that defense, but I think they can get it done here, especially with the home field advantage.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll roll with Buffalo. I'm sure they'll be, obviously the likely to be the favorite in that game, and they are likely to, like Snyder just illustrated, like they've had it taken away from them like a few times in the past couple of years, to the point where I think they're going to be pretty determined. Cincinnati made it to the Super Bowl last year, and they barely lost that game. So Cincinnati's got determination of their own, but like for the sake of this, let's go with Buffalo. Personally, I think Cincinnati and the Chargers would be my favorite picks to try to advance based on best ball. Like if I'm drafting heavy on teams and I want to be a little bit different than going the standard Kansas City or Buffalo route, I like Cincinnati and I like the Chargers a lot as far as best ball is concerned. I think either one of those teams could make a run in these playoffs, and Buffalo obviously too. So we'll go with Buffalo in this one. So NFC, San Francisco versus Detroit. I think for me, that's a no-brainer with San Francisco. I think the steam runs out of Coach Campbell's sails on this one, and I think San Francisco just would dominate this game. Thoughts?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you there. I think the Niners are the best team in the NFC, so I'm just going to keep rolling with them. I'm probably going to roll with them throughout the playoffs this year. I think it's they have the best roster.
Yeah, and I think Minnesota versus the Giants, if that ended up being that first round matchup, I would have Minnesota in this game playing at home against the Giants team that's, like we were talking about, they played a really crappy schedule in the AFC East. They've basically had a cakewalk, and they, for a team that they probably wanted to do bad this year, but their schedule was so easy that they've been winning games and despite themselves. And now they're going to be in a situation next year where they're not going to be able to get one of those high draft picks. So they're kind of in a bad situation, like in a situation where they're going to lose probably in the first round of the playoffs, and they're going to get like not a great like draft pick in the first round next year. So they're probably going to be stuck with Daniel Jones for another season. What are your thoughts here, Snyder?
Yeah, right there. I could see an upset here. I think the Vikings are way overrated this year. We saw a couple times they've won some games they probably shouldn't have, and especially last week with that epic comeback. I mean, being down 33 points to the Colts in the first half. I'm gonna definitely be on the Vikings there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that anything could happen in that game. I do think that Minnesota is overrated, but I do think that the Giants are overrated too, and even more so than Minnesota. I think Minnesota at least has an offense, like an offensive weapons that could actually play a game where New York Giants are basically put together with bubblegum and tape. And Dayball is the only thing that basically holds that team together. And I mean, you can only put so much on a first-year coach like that, and a team that has not really been playing that well, but they've been advancing because they've been playing teams that have been playing worse than them. So I see Minnesota winning this game too, and I'm going to put them as the team to advance. Obviously, Philadelphia would advance out of that round. And then we got Tampa Bay versus Dallas. So this is a spot where Dallas historically just blows it, and they lose. And playing against Brady in the playoffs, I could see Dallas completely just choking in this spot, and Tampa Bay winning. They'd be playing in Tampa Bay if this matchup happens. That gives Tampa Bay another advantage. Dak has not been playing well. I think Dallas's offense is a little bit overrated. They've been running the ball well, but Tampa Bay has a really good run defense, and I think that they would be able to handle, be strength on strength basically. And I think at the end of the day, Tampa Bay's run defense would be able to control that situation. Dallas, their passing game their passing defense is strong, but they're also aggressive, and that's been one of the knocks on them. Dallas, from the run perspective, how's Dallas on run defense, Snyder?
I think it's all right. I don't have the DVOA pulled up right now. I can get it quick.
Yeah, let's check
but I think they're generally decent. I know the secondary. I mean, they have that great pass rush. Their secondary is kind of injury riddled right now. So
yeah, Yeah, the Dallas secondary,
They're 10th
like
DVOA, 10th against the run, and 4th against the
10th against
pass.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think that those might be a little bit deceptive against the pass, at least based on who they faced this season. I know DVOA is supposed to be adjusted based on opponent, but it's still, I just think that Dallas has shown vulnerability in that secondary. Look at Jacksonville, what they put up, like 30, 40 points on them last week. So, and that was all passing basically. So Dallas is a team that can be beat. It's just a matter of the problem with Tampa Bay though is, and we're going to get into this on our showdown analysis, is they're run by a defensive minded coach, and he's a dusty coach to begin with, but he's also defensive minded, and they don't play to Brady's strengths really, but Brady himself is dusty. So it's a dust ball coach with a dust ball quarterback, but you never know with Brady in these playoffs. He could come alive at any time, and Tampa Bay's got a pretty strong team. They just had a lot of injuries this season, especially on the offensive line. That would be something that Dallas could take advantage of with their pass rush. So I think it would be like a pretty close game, but I think Dallas usually chokes in this spot, man. So I could just see Tampa Bay winning. I know that's not going to be a popular call, but I could see Tampa Bay winning. But what do you think? Who do you want to advance into this next round, Snyder?
I think Dallas wins this matchup. I don't think Tampa Bay is that good. I think Brady is washed. I don't see the Cowboys advancing too far in this playoffs, but I think this is a game they can win.
Okay, yeah, I'll be with you on that one. So that would put Dallas versus Philadelphia in the next round, and that would put San Francisco versus Minnesota. To me, it's pretty clear with Philadelphia and Dallas. They'd be playing in Philly. Division rivals. I think Philly could handle Dallas, and I think that Dallas is just, they're going to choke at some point in this playoffs, and I think that they would choke versus Tampa Bay or Philly. Honestly, I don't think that they make it past this round. What do you think there, Snyder?
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with the Eagle. I mean, there's one thing to consider though with this Jalen Hurts injury. Depending on how severe that is, I think the Eagles are kind of overrated myself. I think they can beat the Cowboys here, and I think if they have to play Gardner Minshew, I think he's fully capable of winning a game or two in the playoffs. So I'm kind of low on the Cowboys as a whole.
Yeah, but
I think they can win that first game if they do play Tampa Bay. If they play somebody else other than Tampa Bay, they could possibly lose the first round matchup as well.
Yeah, I like the Eagles. I like that way that they've built that team. I've heard the overrated thing before too. I don't think that they're that overrated. I think that Hurts is he's come a long way this season, and he has that running potential on top of it. So the Eagles have a solid run game. They have great weapons for wide receivers. Like in the pass game, and Dallas Goedert too. So they've got a lot of great weapons on that team. When you compare that to Dallas, they got like CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard are their main cogs in the pass game. Schultz is good, Gallup is good, but compared to Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, and Dallas Goedert, like I would take Philly in that matchup. And then Philly's defense is really good too. They had a weak point early in the season where they lost their rookie run stuffer, and they were vulnerable in the run game for a few weeks. But once they filled that hole, and you got to give credit to Howie Roseman, he's the general manager there, bringing in Ndamukong Suh and the other dude that they brought in to kind of make up for losing Jonathan Davis. And they ended up plugging that hole in the run game, and then Jonathan Davis is back, and they've just been playing really well these past few games. They haven't really shown any real vulnerabilities. So I just think that Philly is a solid team all around. Their defense is great. They got a lot of defensive weapons as well as offensive weapons. They did have an easy schedule. Can't deny that at all. But I think they're a solid team. I think they have a decent record regardless of the division that they played in this year. but I'm with you on advancing them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So San Francisco versus Minnesota. Snyder, what do you think on that game?
I think the 49ers just absolutely blitz them here. I wouldn't surprise me if they even shut him out in this spot. You get Kirk Cousins in this prime time spot, most likely, and I think he's going to crumble like he usually does in these situations. And like I said, the 49ers, I think, have the best roster in the NFC, so I think they could beat them like 28-3 or something in that type of game, possibly.
Yeah, with you 100% on that one. That's an easy one. Philly versus San Francisco. I'd lean San Francisco here. I think Philly, like I said, they're a great team, but I just think that they'd be outcoached in this one. I know that Sirianni has favorite for Coach of the Year, but I don't think that you can give Coach of the Year to anyone in that AFC East. Honestly, I think that's like, that's ridiculous. Like I have Shanahan winning Coach of the Year. I got him at like 8,000 plus 8,000. And at some point, like after I bet plus 8,000, he was at plus 10,000, but now he's all the way down to plus 1,500. And he's only behind a couple other people, including Sirianni, who like I said, I think Sirianni is completely overrated. Like you listen to a few of his press conferences from last season, and it's like, I will give him credit though, because he's been able to adapt the offense to attack the weaknesses of the opponents. A lot of coaches won't bother to do that, but Sirianni, like you can always count on him attacking an opponent's weakness. And in this case, in the San Francisco game, the weakness would be their passing defense. So you could see Hurts throwing a lot to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Goddard in this game. So pass game for the Eagles in this one would be, like the way to attack. But I think San Francisco pulls it off, even with Brock Purdy, and they advance to the Super Bowl to face Buffalo. And that's kind of how I've been drafting, like with these best ball playoffs. Snyder, have you drafted any best ball playoff?
Just one so far, but I'm going to start digging in here. Starting this weekend, I'm going to start jumping in pretty heavy here. As we get closer to the end of the season, I get more of a zeroed in on who I think is going to be able to advance in these playoffs and such. But I'm right there with you on the 49ers. I think it's a pretty big coaching mismatch here. Shanahan in these playoffs. I think they're going to take away the ground game from Hurts. They're going to put like a spy on him or something. Shanahan's going to have something for him. He's going to force Hurts to beat him through the air. I don't think Hurts has that big of a ceiling passing against a good defense like this. Yeah,
for sure. I do. I like San Francisco to beat Buffalo in the Super Bowl too. Like I just think that that San Francisco D is it's so good, and like they've got the weapons too. They got an all-star weapons. The only thing is Brock Purdy. He'd be a weakness, but it'd be a tough one. Like San Francisco. Like I think is the better coach team. They got the better weapons, but Buffalo, I mean, you can't put anything past Josh Allen either. And if Josh Allen and like honestly, San Francisco's pass defense, like we talked about, was a little weaker than their run defense. So Diggs could kind of handle that situation. So I could see it going either way. I might lean San Francisco here though, to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think that would be like a complete coin flip. I bet the spread would be 3 points or less. I think that would just be a great matchup from both sides of the balls. You will have some worry with if it's Brock Purdy. I mean, the bright lights and everything. But I mean, that roster is so good, and Shanahan is such a good coach. I think he will coach him up and put him in the right spots and not ask him to do too much over his head and kind of keep him in a good zone. But then you got Josh Allen on the other side. I mean, that dude is absolutely elite. The best quarterback in the league, I think. And Stephon Diggs, I think, I mean, that'd be a heck of a matchup.
Yeah.
I can roll with whatever you want.
Yeah, I would lean. I'm going to lean San Francisco there.
Yeah, take the better coach.
Yeah, just based on coaching. That's a really a coin flip, like Snyder was saying, though. But if you're drafting a bunch of Buffalo and San Francisco guys in these playoffs and they end up making it all the way to the Super Bowl, then it doesn't really matter who wins, honestly. Like you're just happy either way. But yeah, for the sake of argument, we'll go with San Francisco here. So that's it for our playoff kind of scenarios here. Play around with that ESPN thing, before you dig into any of these drafts. If you're trying to do on Underdog or Drafters or wherever it happens to be. But yeah, play around with it, get an idea of who you want to draft before you go into these. It's all about stacking teams and trying to get good value, obviously. And that's it for this week. We'll come out with that Showdown show, like I was mentioning. Hit the subscribe on our YouTube page. Give us a like. Try to get a lot of likes on this, and keep drafting those playoff best ball teams, man. Like the playoff best ball, that's the funnest, most fun format that I've played with best ball. Snyder, I don't know which one you prefer. Which do you prefer, like the playoff best ball, or do you prefer regular season?
Yeah, I like the playoff best ball just because you have it's a shorter time period and you have a sweat like every week. You're trying to get your different builds. Like you're not like some of the times I'll be drafted. I won't even be looking at the rankings. I'll just be building off of my scripts on which teams I think go further. I think there's a huge advantage to that too, as people normally will draft off of highest rankings. You'll have some guys ranked high, like St. Brown and some of those pass catchers and other players that may not even make the playoffs, but they're going to be ranked high on the general rankings, and I think it's a pretty big advantage not even looking at those rankings.
Yeah, for sure. ADP is out the window for me on these things. I'm just building on script, and I think that is an advantage if you kind of take the time to map out your script in these playoffs and know who the vulnerable teams are and who the potential value teams are and stuff like that. But that's it for this show. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the like we said, and then also make sure that you become a member at Run Pure Sports. They'll have all sorts of good premium content coming out throughout the playoffs and everything like that you're going to want to be on board with. And you can get the ho 25. That'll knock 25% off your first payment. That does not include SaberSim, but it includes everything else basically. So enjoy that. And Snyder, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you guys next time.